Hello folks, J. Scott Phillips here, and today we are bound for Hollywood with a look at This Girl for Hire, the very first Honey West novel written by G.G. Fickling and first published in July of 1957 by Pyramid Books. And I read this book way back in July, and I was originally intending this to be an offering for Private Eye July, which is a BookTube event created by Jim at Mystery and Mayhem. But I ran out of time to finish up some research and get it done by the end of July, which I thought was kind of a shame. I really enjoyed the book and I wanted to do a video about it. And then I thought, well, you know, August is GarbAugust. And that is another BookTube event created by Ollie at Criminolly to encourage us all to read literary trash. And I'm not quite sure, although I'm kind of sure, that the Honey West novel could fit into that category in some way. Very provocative and sexy book, at least for its day. So I'm going to sneak it in here as a last-minute offering for GarbAugust, which I'm also missing out on completely here again. So without wasting too much more time, let's get into it and talk about Honey West. Now, most people, if they know Honey West at all, will probably remember it from the very old TV show starring Anne Francis that was produced back in the early 60s, 1960s. And it was originally an episode, or Honey West first appeared in the April 21st, 1965 episode of Burke's Law. And I guess I didn't really know that before doing some research for this video here, but I do remember Honey West as a little kid watching it. I was only 10 years old when the show came out, and I was mysteriously intrigued, let's say, by this show. Now, it wasn't a show that I would normally watch. I like private eye shows and things, and Honey West was television's very first female private eye lead character. So these were back in the early days of the women's movement, and TV shows were starting to embrace that and the new audience. But then, of course, it also titillated the men in the audience, and I guess that's why I was watching it. I remember watching this show with my dad. He always had the show on every week. It was only on for 1 year, one season. It was fairly well embraced, I guess I'll use that word, by the viewing audience. It was a hit show, but it was expensive to produce. And so it was on ABC, and ABC decided towards the end of that one season that they could make more money by not producing an expensive show like Honey West and instead importing a British TV show that was already produced overseas and bring that to American television the following year, in 1966. And that show also had a very attractive, provocative female lead, and that was Mrs. Emma Peel in The Avengers, the British TV show The Avengers, which I also enjoyed as a kid, and that show went on for quite a while. That's another story. But the Anne Francis show is probably what most people know of Honey West, but it was originally a series of books created by the pen name G.G. Fickling, starting back in 1957. And the first book in that series, This Girl for Hire, is what we're going to chat about. So let's start off here by talking a little bit about the writing team, husband and wife writing team that went by the pen name G.G. Fickling. Then we'll get into looking at the book a little bit. It was a lot of fun to read. And then we'll wrap things up by looking at some of the book cover illustrations and artwork that graced various editions from 1957 on up to the present day. So, but as I say, let's start off by looking at the husband and wife team, G.G. Fickling. Here we are looking at Gloria Fickling on the left and her husband, Forrest Skip Fickling, on the far right there, and then standing in between them, that's Anne Francis, who played their character, Honey West, in the TV show. Now, Skip and Gloria Fickling were already a fledgling writing team, and their initial idea for this new Private Eye character was to combine Marilyn Monroe, who of course was very popular and very much in the public eye in those days, late 1950s, and combine her with the character Mike Hammer, also a very popular Private Eye character in fiction, naturally. And the idea of a female private eye apparently had really never been tried before, or at least successfully. And so they were lobbing up their idea to some of their other writer friends and eventually to publishers, and nobody thought it would work. But they finally decided to kind of launch a publisher's blitz in New York, and they managed to sell the idea to Pyramid Books. That first book was This Girl for Hire and was published in 1957 under the pseudonym G.G. Fickling. The initials G.G. stood for Gloria Gautreaux Fickling, using her initials to obscure the author's gender. And then eventually the Ficklings went on to write a series of 11 Honey West novels from 1957 up through 1971. Skip would plot and write the story, and Gloria, who was once an assistant fashion editor for Women's Wear Daily and Look magazine, she would make sure that the character of Honey West was a fun but believable portrayal of a modern, self-reliant woman. Now, the character of Honey West was a little different in the book than she was in the TV show. In the TV show, back in those days, there were a lot of private eye shows and detective shows in the 1950s and into the early 60s. The pendulum was kind of swinging more towards spy and espionage, that genre. And there were more TV shows coming out like The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and things like that on TV. So they borrowed some of the little gimmicks from the spy genre and gave those to Honey West. She was still a private investigator, still a private eye, but they were giving her gadgets. For instance, like she had a lipstick that when she turned the lipstick, for the lipstick to pop up, it was like the pen in, was it The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Open Channel D. It was a little like a walkie-talkie kind of a device. She had a compact that would flip open and act as a radio, and it kind of reminds you now, watching it now, of the communicator from Star Trek, but she could talk to her partner elsewhere on both those devices. And then in her apartment, she had a bookcase that would spin around to reveal her hidden office in the back. Now, if she's a private investigator, I don't know why she really needs a hidden office, but it was just a gimmick so you could see that bookcase spin around and reveal something hidden in her apartment, like you might see in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. or I Spy or Secret Agent Man, those kinds of things. And then they also gave her, in the TV version, a pet ocelot, who's kind of this vicious cat, large, vicious, wild animal that she led around by a leash and would run loose in her apartment. And I guess that was to depict that Honey West was a tough and rugged female, but yet also feminine. And so that was just an expression of that. The ocelot never appears in the books, so there is that. Now, none of that spy stuff either are in the books. That was all a concoction for the TV show and the kind of the changing popularities of TV in those days. But in both versions, Honey West was a judo expert, so she could defend herself when she saw trouble coming, and so she had that confidence that you would expect of any male private eye. She had that too when she was going out on her own and investigating things in the shadows at night and in dark alleyways in Los Angeles. She inherited her private detection agency from her father, who had been killed in the backstory of the book. Her father had been killed in an alley somewhere in Los Angeles, and the case is still open. It's never been solved. And so that was what prompted Honey then to take over the practice and become a detective herself in her father's footsteps. And reading the first book here anyway, she is, at this time in the series of books, vowing to someday solve her father's murder. So maybe that's a book that comes in later on down the line, perhaps. And as I say, Honey West is always depicted in the books as a strong, confident, self-reliant blonde bombshell. And she can take care of herself, and she doesn't need to rely on any men. She has a soft spot for the memory of her father, who trained her and brought her up with a strong sense of right and wrong and of justice. And so she is motivated a lot by that. She also has a very strong sense or intuition, I guess you might say, of men in general. So she understands their motivations for things, and that comes in really handy when she's solving crimes or looking for the reasons behind why somebody might do something, or maybe predicting what they are going to do to stop her or whatever the investigation is leading up to or through. So she's got that kind of a little psychology going for her also. Her male counterparts, so she works with the police department, or I guess in this particular case, the sheriff's department in Los Angeles. And so she works with detectives on these through these other departments here. And they are not there to bail her out in the book. She's, like I say, she's self-reliant. The men there are there to maybe warn her of things or worry about her, but she gets in and out of her own scrapes and often comes to the rescue of these other guys instead. So that's always intriguing. Now, she is always very sexy and provocative, but she's never crude. She never uses foul language. She gets into some very I'm going to be using the word provocative, I think, a lot in this video here. But she gets into a lot of, let's just say, provocative situations, in and out of them quite often. And reading them today, they seem rather tame, I guess you'd say, but they were, I'm going to use the word progressive now in this case, but I really mean provocative. The scenes in there of her in various states of dress and undress, and in and out of bed for various reasons, for her own reasons sometimes, and others she's just falls into certain situations where there's only one thing she can do to either find something out or get out of something. We'll just put it that way, I guess. She always seems to have 3 or 4 wardrobe malfunctions in any given story, and so those lead to some humorous scenes from time to time, and also some kind of risque and dangerous scenes as well, which may be more disturbing. But such was the nature of the book, and a lot of the fun involved in the stories revolving around how she gets in and out of predicaments, and using her own self-reliance is quite a bit of fun. All right, probably time to talk about the book itself here, This Girl for Hire, which is the first book, as I say, in the series of Honey West novels that introduced Honey West for the first time to the reading public. And as I say, it was a lot of fun to read. It had a lot of humor in it, a lot of dark stuff, but it also had one of the things that I really like in almost any kind of book that I read, and that is that it was set nearby areas in Southern California that I'm familiar with. I grew up in Anaheim, California, in Orange County, just south of Los Angeles. And so this book, Honey West herself, is based in Long Beach, California, which is a coastal community, if the name doesn't tell you already, or if you don't know, of Los Angeles County. It's where today the Queen Mary is docked, and there's a big marina there, launching off point for trips to Catalina, which figures big in this book. Also close to Hollywood and Los Angeles in general. And Honey's office, or her father's, or her, I guess the former office of her father, Hank West, also H. West. She's inherited that office now in Long Beach at the intersection of the real streets, Anaheim and 3rd Streets. The only problem with that is that Anaheim and 3rd Streets in Long Beach are parallel streets. There's no intersection of those two. But if there were, that's where Honey West's office would be. She never changed the sign on the door that says H. West for Hank West. So she will have clients coming in expecting to find a male private detective, and then being surprised that they're dealing with Honey West here. That comes up a couple times in the book. And I guess she kind of uses that. She's never really changed the ad in the yellow pages and things like that. Didn't change the sign on the door, etc. But the story starts off in Hollywood, in West Hollywood, and it is literally a dark and stormy night. And a body is discovered there that is being identified as one of Honey's current clients. And now he's turning up beaten to death. The Honey's client was a very popular movie star and is now getting into television, and that brings the whole TV production of the story into light here, and has apparently been beaten to death with his own Academy Award. And Honey then comes into the case because it's being investigated, being outside the jurisdiction of the city of Los Angeles. It falls to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, so it's a detective from the Sheriff's Department that is investigating this crime. West Hollywood falling just outside the jurisdiction of the city of LA. And she comes in and starts nosing around, and she's not going to give up this case. And the sheriff's detective is asking, why are you even involved in this? Well, because this guy was one of my clients, and I like the guy. I'm not going to let his murder here slip by without me getting to the bottom of it here as much as I can. So I'm in this with you. So that propels her into the story. And into the background of the story that he had been working on this particular TV show, which sounds like it's kind of like the Jack Benny show or something, where it was a star that had a kind of a variety show sitcom about his own life. That's what I always remember the Jack Benny show as being a sitcom, kind of like Jerry Seinfeld had a show about the character himself in the world that he lived in, but it wasn't a stage show. It was a situation comedy kind of thing. That's how this show sounds like it's being depicted. And so being in 1950s Hollywood, it always had a lot of gorgeous young starlets as guest stars on the show. We get into the politics and all the backroom rivalries and things that are going on behind the scenes, and that seems to be at the root of this murder, whatever is going on. So Honey, of course, being the blonde bombshell that she is anyway, finagles her way into getting cast as a starlet on the show so she can investigate, kind of get in there and find out what's really going on without them knowing that she is a private eye. The show is coming under some duress by the network executives, and so there's some people flying out from New York, and they're going to have this big powwow on Catalina Island to discuss the future of the show. And so 2/3 of this book takes place on Catalina Island, which is great because you get to run around Catalina through the streets of Avalon and all around the island. There's various little remote areas, coves on the other side of the island from Avalon, all over the island where tourists may get to, but as the reader, you get to follow Honey and her investigation and the suspects and red herrings and things in the book. The book, again, I just keep wanting to say how fun it was. It had plot twists everywhere. And, if you're like me, you're going to try to figure the story out, and you start to find out what these rivalries and friendships and alliances and battles going on between all these TV personalities here. And just every time you think you start to figure out who the good guys and the bad guys are, they flip it on you. And every few pages, there's a break in the story, sometimes 2 or 3 during a chapter. Each one of those ends with a reveal of some kind. We go, oh, well, there goes everything I was thinking. Now, I don't know what to make of this at all. Sometimes they're legitimate, sometimes they're red herrings, but it keeps you turning the pages. Lots of fun. And like I say, you get to run around old Long Beach, which is lots of fun for me, through old Los Angeles, or at least the Los Angeles and Hollywood of the 50s, and Catalina of the 50s. I really enjoyed the Catalina scenes myself, because when I was a little kid, through the local parks and recreation one summer, we had an excursion, we called them, to Catalina Island, me and a bunch of other 9 or 10-year-olds or something going to Catalina for the day. And I felt I was marooned there. Once we got there, the voyage out to the island was great. Once we're on the island, there's not a lot of unsupervised kids to do. It's not like going to the zoo or something like that where there's activities built in for you. We were just left to wander around the city of Avalon, the streets of Avalon there. And other than the fact that it's on an island, it's just like any other little local town here where there's just not much for you to do on a summer after. All that's, I guess, another story. But this book takes place in that Avalon and on Catalina in those days. So a lot of the things that they talk about, places that Honey goes or where she's investigating or other people are up to no good, I was looking for things to do in that very city in about those. This was probably around 1963 that I was there. The book itself takes place around 1955, I guess, but close enough so that the depictions of Catalina in the story were my memories of Catalina. Since those days, and this is another story, I guess, but just since those days, I've rarely gone back to Catalina because I've just never been able to beat that feeling of just being landlocked and isolated and trapped, basically. You have to wait for the ships or the boats, however you got there, to come back. You can't just hop in a car and drive home when you get tired of doing whatever you're there to do. You're stuck waiting. And anyway, that's just me. A lot of people love Catalina. It's a beautiful place, a lot of fun if you're there for a specific reason. But so far, well, anyway, like I said, it's another story. So maybe it's time now to move on, and we'll start looking at some of the covers here. And I think I've got 7 covers to take a look at. So let's go through the covers of This Girl for Hire, and then we'll tie it up. Here are the covers of the first and second printing of the Pyramid Book Edition, July and November 1957, and illustrated by Harry Schaare. And this is our very first look at Honey West, and it's, I think, kind of a modest cover, considering how often Honey's attributes are on display throughout the book. You'd think we'd see her maybe from a scene that takes place in the book during a thunderstorm where she's trapped outside after a strip poker game. She's locked outside, and I would think maybe they might have depicted a flash of lightning or something to give you a quick reveal of Honey's very provocative form. There's that word again, provocative. Or at least maybe wearing one of the many revealing bathing suits that she wears throughout the story. But no, instead we have a fairly conservative outfit here that she's wearing. And I think that we'll see a few examples of some of Harry Schaare's other works. He did the first few covers for the first few Honey West novels. And I think he was probably using a model to paint from that dressed in a certain way, and he was just depicting her own choice of wardrobe, perhaps. But no, here she's just wearing an outfit that's not really described in the book. But the pose is apropos, I think. She seems cornered, but she's determined, and she's got that confidence going for her. And on close examination, you see that she is holding her little 32 pistol. At least that's supposed to be a 32 caliber revolver, but it looks more like a little semi-automatic. So again, I think this is a case where the artist was just depicting the essence of the character and not really going by specific details as described in the book itself. And probably good enough for most people, and no one raises an eyebrow except for people like me. But I mentioned some other examples of Harry Schaare's work, so let's take a quick look at just a very small selection of some of his artwork here, and we'll chat a little bit about him. The first 4 examples here are his covers that he did for the Honey West series, and I think maybe you can see here what I was talking about as far as the model that I think he was using that was dressing herself to characterize Honey West, and he just went by that. But then we'll get into some other examples here. He was an artist who was very comfortable painting any kind of a subject matter at all. from very refined things on down through kind of the lower depths of trashy literature of those days. But I am selecting to show here, since this is GarbAugust, some of the more use the word provocative again examples of some of his artwork here. He did cover artwork as well as big lavish double spread illustrations for men's adventure magazines, but also things for magazines like Reader's Digest, Look magazine, almost anything that needed an illustrator, he was comfortable doing it. He was born in 1922 in New York City, and he's another product of the Pratt Institute, which turned out a lot of illustrators in those days and still exists today. But anyway, that is kind of a little gallery of the artwork of Harry Schaare that is fitting for GarbAugust. And so now we'll get back to a few other book covers for This Girl for Hire. And it's always interesting to take a look at the cover art of a book that keeps getting republished through many years, just to see how a book gets repackaged to meet the aesthetics of the day, or whatever the marketing trends might be, for good or bad. And I think This Girl for Hire is a good example of maybe that second category. Let's take a look. This is the March 1965 retooling of the cover by Pyramid Books. And by 1965, there were several other Honey West novels. And so this became a pattern here for several other titles using this same layout here and the same photographic model. The cover was designed by Paul Bacon Studio, and the photograph is by Lester Krauss, who I knew as a photographer that did a lot of work for Mad Magazine back in the 60s, but I guess he was also doing, obviously making a living shooting photography for other publications and other publishers. This is not a photo of Anne Francis, although if you see the snipe at the bottom of the cover there, you will see that it is promoting Honey West's TV introduction on that Burke's Law episode, Who Killed the Jackpot, which would run on April 21st, 1965, about a month after this cover was first published. And again, we see Honey's gun is wrong. Again, I'm probably the only type of guy that is going to worry about that. It doesn't meet the description, but it doesn't matter. But it is promoting the Burke's Law episode, and so we don't get, there's that word again, provocative, that provocative of a shot of Honey West. Instead, she's depicted here as more of a TV action character, perhaps. Now, looking back at the history of the TV show here, that April 1965 episode of Burke's Law was intended to be kind of a soft pilot for the Honey West TV series itself as a spin-off, which premiered in September of 65, just after that very summer. And then by that time, they could change the artwork up to meet that new TV audience, because in December 1965, Pyramid Books gave us this cover for This Girl for Hire. And by then, there were 9 books in the Honey West series. So Pyramid Books was releasing all of those now using this Anne Francis cover here with the publicity shots from the TV show as a template for all 9 titles that were out at the time. And if you look in the front matter of this particular edition here, you will see a list of all 9 of those titles, plus another title called Angel from Hell, which was a book then in preparation. Now, there never was a Honey West novel by that name ever published. And in fact, maybe because the TV show was canceled after its first season, no other Honey West novels were written by the Ficklings until 1971 again. So there was a big gap. Now, it could be that the very next book that came out, what was it called? Honey on Her Tail, which was a 1971 novel that came out 7 years afterwards. That might have been that book that was in preparation, just retitled and only getting published years later on. Don't know that for sure, but it's just a kind of an educated guess. But like I say, we're getting to see Honey West starring Anne Francis. All the covers that came out at that time had that same shot of Anne Francis as Honey down on the bottom of the front cover. The inset up above would change, various shots from the TV show that likely had nothing to do with the books, because she has a partner in the TV show that she doesn't have in the books. But then this, it's not really a wraparound cover, but we also get to see Honey, Anne Francis as Honey, standing there with her pet ocelot, which again, not in the book. Now, if you've got a clothespin handy, I will heartily recommend that you get your hands on that thing and clamp it firmly on your nose for this next cover. This was published by Overlook Books as a paperback in October of 2005, so we've jumped over a few decades here until we get to this next cover here, but it is by an uncredited artist or designer. Don't know who put this thing together. Probably two different people. I'm sure there was an illustration commissioned here, and then it was turned over to the publisher for a designer and art director to take over and put together this thing here. And the illustration itself is not that bad, really. I think that could be Honey West there. I'm sure that's probably who it is, somewhat as she's described in the book. The era seems like it's been captured in a few of the different images there. And I guess as competent as the illustration is, not really very inspired. But the illustrator turned in the work to the publisher, I imagine, and then the whole thing just fell apart from there. I guess maybe those are supposed to be TV screens that are housing the different frames of Honey stripping down at gunpoint. That's not really depicted in the story, but might be at least representative of the character maybe in any given generic Honey West story, perhaps. But if I had been the illustrator, I would have been horrified to see this as the final result. Those garish primary colors, or kind of trying to be primary colors, just fight each other. In design, you usually want to avoid putting three primary colors together like that, because they just clash. They're not complementary to each other. They just clash with each other when you use that whole palette, and this is a good example of that. Unless there's a good reason for it, and there doesn't seem to be any reason for that on this cover. Don't know what that blue strip is supposed to be with the white band across it up towards the top. What is that representing? It looks like it's just some designer was trying to break the page up for no particular reason. No thought, I don't think, given to this. The typography itself was set and placed by a chimpanzee that probably worked cheap, maybe. And I just feel like this is totally unfair to the illustrator. Not a single moment of art direction was offered in putting this thing together, and just as an example, there are probably several of these on this cover, but just what is that blob of yellow that's dripping down into the blue streak next to Honey's hip there on the side? It looks like someone was trying to mask around the illustration of Honey West there, and then realized they had gone too far in from the yellow into the blue, and then just didn't bother to fix it. It just left it there, and it's just sloppy work overall. A lot of this kind of stuff might be the fact that Honey West is not a very well-known character, even though she was pretty popular decades ago. Publishers can get a hold of the rights to print it. They don't have the rights to use original artwork from those first few editions, so they have to come up with something. They know it's a retro character. These publishers are not of the highest shelf, I guess we shall say, and so they just patch these things together. But this next one is a little better. I think this one is palatable, I think, and this is the 2019 Deerstalker editions. It's a Kindle cover. Again, uncredited artwork, but it's clearly a photo montage. Don't know if these photos were shot for the cover. I suspicion they are put together through stock photography, maybe. But the girl herself here certainly looks like she's from the 1950s, at least. But is that supposed to be Honey West? If it is, she looks a tad too innocent to be her. Maybe she's a Hollywood ingenue, which there were several in the story here. It isn't clear, and the background is a little too dark to see. if you start squinting, you can make out that it looks like it's a period living room and maybe a lavish living room. This was all set around the world of Hollywood back in the 50s, and so there is a lot of wealth and decadence depicted in the story. People had fabulous homes and yachts that they could sail out to Catalina, back and forth. Just a lot of extravagant use of wealth in building these living environments that they would live in. This might be one of those, but then if you look even further into the background, there's some weird mechanical apparatus back there. And on really squinting at it, I finally realized that that looks like it's supposed to be a TV camera on maybe a sound stage. So perhaps this whole area here that we see this girl at is during the production of that TV show, perhaps. Not very clear. Certainly doesn't look like it's any kind of a murder mystery or a detective cover, but be that as it may, the type here again is still not very inspired, not very well laid out or executed, but at least it does look like some thought was given to the choice of font. So maybe this is the work of a design intern working for free, maybe, and maybe that chimpanzee had been fired by now. But overall, it's not a horrible cover for maybe a third-party Kindle cover. It does have a vibe to it, but really nothing special. We've seen worse. So moving on to this next cover. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So this, I believe, is what was once a print-on-demand edition that's, I don't believe, available anymore. If you do come across it online like I did and you click on it to buy it, it's going to take you to a different cover. So I don't think this artwork or this edition by Mystery House, I don't think they exist anymore. I tried to do some research behind all these covers here, and I guess maybe this one in particular, but there doesn't appear to be any publisher by the name of Mystery House anymore. And like I say, if you click on this image to buy it, you're going to get a different edition, likely that Kindle edition that we were just looking at before. There's still no credited artist here, but it's obviously inspired by the Vargas girls in the 1950s. And so that gives us the proper era. And I believe this is probably supposed to be Honey West. This scene does not appear in the book verbatim here, but it is reminiscent of a lot of the kinds of situations she'd find herself in. And if there is one scene that it comes close to, it might be that scene where I was mentioning earlier, the strip poker game that she was playing with these guys in a bungalow on Catalina Island to get information out of them by enticing them into this strip poker game. And of course, she's winning through most of the game because she's dealing off the bottom of the deck, and they're just stupid kids, and they don't know what they're in for in dealing with Honey West. But at some point, the thunderstorm comes in, and all the lights go out on the island, and this produces a precarious situation. And so she's got to get out of there. And of course, she's lost all her clothes now, but she gets locked out of the bungalow in this thunderstorm, and she has to find her way through the streets to get to the police station in Avalon. But this is, of all the covers we're looking at here, the most provocative cover, there's our favorite word again, of the batch that we're looking at. And but again, it does not seem to be depicting anything other than the banner at the top that says Mystery House, that it has anything to do with private eyes or detectives or murder or mystery of any kind. This could just as easily be as successful on a cover of any kind of a story that has naked ladies running around in it, maybe even of that era. But then again, we've got the same issue with the type on the cover, and yeah, I know, what type? And then that brings us to the last cover that we'll look at here, and this one is by Black Cat Weekly. Black Cat Weekly is an online e-magazine that you can download individual issues or subscribe to it. And this artwork is from March of 2024, so only just last year. This Girl for Hire was published in their Black Cat Weekly number 132, and they used just a sliver of this artwork in that publication along with several other stories in the same issue. But then they released it separately as this ebook. And again, the art is uncredited here. And man, this cover here probably comes the closest of really nice covers for me out of this whole batch here. It still misses the mark, so I'm going to put my art director's hat back on again here, and we'll pick it apart a little bit. Honey looks pretty modern here to my eyes. She does have a hairstyle that looks like it could be 1950s, but really overall, she looks fairly modern to my eyes anyway. The street behind her there looks like that definitely could be Long Beach or Los Angeles in the 50s. So we got that right. And that's such a strong image in this illustration here that I think that helps to carry the day here. This whole retro look here, once we look into the background, the cityscape there, back in the mid-50s, Long Beach certainly did not have any high-rises like that. Los Angeles itself wouldn't have high-rises like that until 20 or 30 years later. So the further back we go, the less important maybe it is, but still it's one of those things that would have been simple enough to just get an old postcard of those days and put those kinds of details in the background there. The palm trees, I have no problem with that. Overall, the illustration here is pretty good, and I do get a sense of that era. Again, I don't know if I really get the private eye feel from it, but still pretty close. Then we get to the type again, and we're all over the place. The type is pulling you up here, down there, all around. The artwork itself is trying to be stylish, and then whoever put the typography together or the layout of the cover here just didn't give it that much thought at all, unfortunately. And that just seems to be kind of going on through all these modern editions here, and not uncommon, unfortunately, in modern book design, especially ebook covers. So we'll wrap things up here now with a quick look at the gallery of all the This Girl for Hire covers here. And as they're scrolling by, we'll just make a few little last minute bits of commentary here. As they're scrolling by, take a look and see if you have a particular favorite out of the batch, or maybe a least favorite, and then let me know in the comments down below. I always like to get some discussion or dialogue going on for these videos, and this always seems like a good starting point here, perhaps. But out of all of these covers, I always like to talk about my own personal favorite. None of these really stand out, but if I'm going to pick a favorite, I'm going to say that it's probably that very first one by Harry Schaare. It's not the greatest cover artwork, but it feels the most genuine, and it was the introduction to the whole series, and perfectly competent, and certainly has the feeling of those vintage days, those vintage paperbacks from those days here. My second favorite then would probably be the second one, that one of the with the photo by Lester Krauss. That's again not a great cover. It's perfectly adequate. And it's got a nice layout. Looks like it probably would have popped off the bookshelves in the bookstores back in those days here. But I would say this is probably my second favorite edition or cover, because this is the edition that I read when I read this book here not long ago. From then on down there, getting into, then I guess the next one of my favorite would be the one with Anne Francis on the cover. Can't go wrong with those. Those do have the sense of the private detective, or as Honey West was known as, the private eyeful. So we do get the genre mixed in with the sexy girls and things on the cover here. After that, pretty much downhill. But let me know what you think. Now, again, I just want to emphasize here that I loved reading this book. It was a lot of fun reading this book. And I'm going to definitely continue reading more Honey West novels. I'm sure well, I'm not sure, but I would expect that they would get better and better. And as long as they take place in the same area, Long Beach, LA, Southern California, whatever, I know I'm going to enjoy that part. And like I did with the Sherlock Holmes stories, where so many things take place in actual places, or even the fictional places seem based on actual places, I created a Google map of this Honey West book. And I'll put a link down below if you might enjoy looking at it and have some fun running around with Honey West through the streets of Long Beach, Hollywood, Los Angeles, and Avalon, and around the island of Catalina. Just for fun, no particular reason, but just so you can see where these things actually happen. Now, I wish there had been some really cool cover artwork. There was some interesting artwork. It does depict the eras as they went floating by here with this character here. But anyway, if you were a Honey West fan, if you ever seen the TV show or have any knowledge or read any of the Honey West books, let's chat about them in the comments down below. It's just fun to chat about any of these things here. I really think it's why we're here. So chime in. And I would like to thank again Jim at Mystery and Mayhem for inspiring me to read this book in the first place. Not this particular title, but because of his Private Eye July event, which I missed out on just by a few weeks here. But then I want to also thank Criminali for GarbAugust, which is always a blast and gave me a second chance at doing a video for this with some kind of a BookTube event behind it. And so I guess we'll just wrap it up with that. And thanks for watching. And until we get a chance to meet again, thanks a lot.